Just about 27 minutes. Joining us right now, the sultry, sweet, wonderful, good-looking, smart, intelligent, just all-around good guy from CBS Sports, the guru of fantasy. Just period, end of statement. Guru of fantasy actually sounds like a stripper thing. The person who is really smart at fantasy football.
There you go.
Okay, Dave Richard. Hello, David.
You're good at saying nice things about people, Dave.
Only before you come on.
No, because we talked about this last week with Jason, how you did that with Jason as well.
Yeah. Well, because you guys...
You really are like a kind soul at your core.
No, don't. Let's not start that rumor, please. Let's just... You guys know how I am off the air, and we know that's not true. I'm a horrible person. Like, you and I'll talk on the phone, Dave, and you know, this happened over the summer. I was like, hey, man, do you have time to come on over this year? And you were like, yeah, of course. And I was like, you're right. Of course you do. You better. And I didn't even say thank you. That's just, I'm just not a polite person.
No, I was not going to mention that or all the curse words that you use.
Exactly.
I would also, by the way, as we get into fantasy football, Jason, I would like to publicly thank Dave Richard, speaking of me being a good guy, because we are now in week 3, technically, of our conversations.
Mm-hmm.
He is not once has he brought up the fact that his Miami Hurricanes look like world beaters and my Florida State Seminoles look like the world that they're beating. He has been very good about it, and I just want to say I appreciate that with 2-0 Memphis coming into Doak Campbell this weekend.
Well, I did razz you about it at the end of our time together last week.
Yeah, but that was good-natured.
It was. And I'm not going to do it again. I promise.
Okay. So the first thing I want to ask you is the elephant in the room that I want to get out of the way, because I know you feel this way. Obviously you're in Florida too. So it's a lot. It's probably just all over the place. And with, we just spent the entire last segment or 2 segments ago on Tua and his future and the human being that is far more important than football. However, we're doing a fantasy football show, and let's be honest, there's people that are Tua Tagovailoa owners out there that are going to scramble and all that. And again, not a big deal. We care about the human more, just putting that disclaimer on there, but we also have to do our job. So for those who are looking at Tua on the shelf for at least, it seems, a game and almost certainly longer, who do you have in the hopper perhaps that you might call up from the minor leagues?
And it's the second week in a row where a quarterback got hurt before Sunday's games, and you're able to go to your waiver wire and grab a replacement. Now, the name, and these aren't great names, but the one at the top of the list is Geno Smith with Seattle, taking on New England this week. After that, it's the Dolphins, who I don't think they have a great secondary. Detroit, they don't have a great secondary. And then the Giants, they don't have a great secondary. And so Geno Smith might be able to get you through 3 games, weeks 3, 4, and 5. If Tua were to miss those games, we don't know how long he will be out for. The other names on the list are not great. It's Caleb Williams. It's Gardner Minshew, just has a good schedule. It's Bo Nix. He's got a good week 3 game. Maybe you can cut a quick trade for Brock Purdy, whose value is a little underrated. Didn't put up a ton of stats in week 1. We know that he missed the touchdown to Ayuk, but that's not on Purdy. That's on Ayuk. And that offensive line for the Niners looked pretty good. So you might be able to get Purdy in trade really cheap, and you could be better off for that, and he could be your starter the rest of the way. I also think that a lot of people who drafted Tua Tagovailoa, Dave, also drafted another quarterback. Tua was one of the handful of veteran quarterbacks that people paired with Caleb Williams, with Jaden Daniels. At this point, Jaden Daniels is an obvious start ahead of Tua anyway. But I think that people did take Tua along with another quarterback. Now it's just time to turn to that other quarterback.
Without knowing, Dave, the future of Tua, there are other guys on the Dolphins that were drafted. Obviously, Tyreek Hill is a high draft pick and has such great potential. But where does he go? Where does some of the other Dolphin offensive players go if, in fact, Tua, whatever his future is, what do the other guys look like now?
So I think as the team stands right now, Jason, there's enough there for one receiver to do well from week to week. And in 2022, when Tua wasn't there, Tyreek Hill had 2 huge games. He had 3 decent games. He had 1 terrible game. And so he would be the one that you could still start and feel good about, and probably more of a low-end wide receiver 1 than a high-end wide receiver 1. Jalen Waddle only had 1 game with more than 10.3 PPR points in those matchups without Tua in 2022. I would be nervous if I had Jalen Waddle on my fantasy squad moving forward. But this is a team that's discovered something in Devon Achane. The 29 touches that he had last night were the most that any Dolphins running back had under Mike McDaniels by a mile, by 6 touches, basically by 20%. The previous high was 23 touches. So they know to get the ball in this guy's hands. And they're doing it in the passing game. He had 7 catches in week 2. He played a ton of snaps. I know he's got the ankle injury, and he is an injury risk. There's absolutely no question about it. But even when Raheem Mostert comes back, which might not be for another week or two, I think that Achane is going to be the focal point moving forward. I know the offensive line's a mess as well. They lost 2 starters yesterday, but they scheme around that better than almost anybody in the league. It almost doesn't matter who they have on offensive line when it comes to their run game. So I think you can start Achane confidently. I think you can start Tyreek Hill with a little bit of lowered expectations, but everybody else in this Dolphins offense, as long as Tua is out, kind of need to be very, very careful about starting them. You have to consider your other options, even with Jalen Waddle.
Should people react and or overreact with Josh Jacobs limited due to a little back nick, I believe? For example, somebody's asking, should they start Jordan Ford over Josh Jacobs and flex plus Jordan Love out so they'll load the box up? Where are you at with him?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Jacobs because of Jordan Love being out. The Colts are going to dare the Packers to throw the football. We'll see. We'll see if they do it, and then we'll see if they can do it effectively. Malik Neighbors, 3 starts in the NFL, 67 pass attempts. You meant Malik
Willis, right? I'm sorry, or am I?
Yeah, what I say, Malik Neighbors?
Yeah. I got you.
Malik Neighbors might be an upgrade over Malik Willis at quarterback.
Well, to your point,
yes, I did mean Malik Willis. Thank you for catching me, Dave.
Yeah.
But he's never thrown a touchdown. He's been in the league for a couple of years. He's never even thrown for 100 yards in a game. Wow. So this is not a great time to trust your Packers wide receivers, and it's not a great time to trust Josh Jacobs. If they were playing against an opponent who I believe had a bad run defense, I'd be a lot more inclined. But I think the Colts' run defense is actually good. I know Joe Mixon had a great game. I think that's a byproduct of the Texans and what they're capable of doing offensively. This isn't the same situation. I would be very nervous with Josh Jacobs this week.
Dave, how about week 1? People get so excited. They have the draft week 1, and maybe someone they drafted high really disappointed, but it's 1 week. There's so much more to go. Who do you expect to have a big bounce back week in week 2 that may have struggled in week 1?
We can start with Garrett Wilson. He didn't have a great game against the 49ers, but he's got the Titans this week. I still would trust him. I would absolutely trust Brandon Ayuk. There's no question about it. The fact that he was even close to scoring a touchdown was a positive. That Jets pass defense is no joke. Now he's got the Vikings. I think that's a step down in class, and I think Ayuk can definitely go out there and have a very good game. Chris Olave, New Orleans. Saints didn't have to throw much last week against the Panthers. Call me crazy. I think they're going to have to throw a lot against the Cowboys this week. Could be a high-scoring game. Could be a fun game. But I'm not sure if Chris Olave is really a dud just because one game against Carolina, he didn't get much of an opportunity to put up huge numbers. Terry McLaurin was just off with Jaden Daniels on a 70-yard touchdown. They can rectify that against a bad Giants defense. And then 3 other receivers, Marvin Harrison, Devontae Adams, Drake London. I wrote about these guys on CBSSports.com. I'm not panicking on any of them yet. Harrison's the one I like the best this week. He had a really good explanation. He said he was thinking too much, and you can kind of tell when a player is thinking too much on the field, they don't play at full speed. By the end of the game against Buffalo last week, he was playing at full speed. I think he'll play at full speed against the Rams. Devontae Adams will get tons of opportunities against Baltimore. I think that Ravens defense is a little bit overrated. Hopefully Gardner Minshew can locate him 10-plus times. And then Drake London is the one that I'm most nervous about. You can read about it on the site. Borderline wide receiver 2 for me this week. I would rather start Jameson Williams. Would rather start pretty much every other name I gave you in the last 90 seconds.
Dave, I can't remember. I think I ran it by you last week, but I want to bring this up again. I told you about the auction league I'm in and how I ended up with Jefferson and all those. So anyways, I had offered CeeDee Lamb for Christian McCaffrey and I was rebuffed. And then yesterday that trade was reintroduced to me. And obviously that's after the revelations that McCaffrey's got Achilles tendonitis, et cetera, et cetera. If you're me and you have CeeDee Lamb, but you're also starting the backup in Minnesota at running back, do you accept that trade?
Can you try and trade for Jordan Mason concurrently, meaning while you're holding on to that trade offer,
Yeah.
can you give up something for Jordan Mason? If you can do that, I would do it.
Okay.
But if you can't do that, I would hesitate just a little bit, because it is not a non-zero chance that McCaffrey is going to potentially get hurt again.
Yeah.
28 years old, coming off of a season with 400 touches. Injury that he's dealing with now stems back to last season. Some weeks he'll be able to play through it. Some weeks he might not. You're going to want to have Mason as that kind of insurance policy on your bench. And Mason's value is pretty high right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that McCaffrey's practiced all week, Dave, that should drive down the value. I don't think you'll be able to give up Ty Chandler for Jordan Mason. You're going to have to give up more than that.
Same guy he's the same guy's got him. He's got McCaffrey and Mason handcuffed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay, so then that's the trade.
Yeah.
You ask for both of them for Lamb, and then you're done.
Yep. Okay. Jason.
Yeah. What do you do about McCaffrey right now?
If you've got Mason, you know what to do. You start Mason if McCaffrey's out. If you don't have him, and you didn't follow our advice back during draft season when we learned about the calf injury, which was add running back depth, now you can try and add running back depth. But you just need to pay attention, keep your fingers crossed that he's healthy, have a running back ready to go in case he doesn't play. Mason makes a ton of sense. He's already rostered in every league. So trading for him, if you can do it on the cheap, it makes sense. But otherwise, it's not like there's a whole list of running backs out there that you can go and find off the waiver wire, plug into your lineup and say, okay, this guy can get me 60% of Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
That doesn't happen. We're not living in a fantasy world, even though we're playing a game called fantasy. You can see if Zach Charbonnet is still out there. He might be in about 20% of leagues. He might end up being the starter for Seattle this week with Kenneth Walker banged up. A couple of other running backs that I would stash. Bucky Irving with the Bucks. Kind of funny how that works out.
That's great,
yeah. And Kamani Vidal with the Chargers. And it kind of using common sense with Vidal. Gus Edwards looked terrible. J.K. Dobbins looked phenomenal, but Dobbins is injury prone.
Right.
So there could come a time where the Chargers need to lean on Vidal. You'd have to be patient to stash him and wait to see what happens. But those are two running backs. Certainly Bucky Irving first is the one I would go with as someone to stash if you can.
All right. We're pretty much out of time, but let me do a lightning round with you real quick to take care of listener questions. Better fantasy play, Jameson Williams, X-Worthy, or Brian Thomas?
Williams.
On Williams. All right. Brandon Cook with Ferguson out, New Orleans injuries to secondary, or Amari Cooper?
We might see Ferguson play. So if Ferguson plays, I would rather have Cooper.
Is Brian Thompson Jr. a must-start flex in a 12-man PPR?
He's getting there. He looked great against Miami. He's got great speed and looked a little bit better than the guy that I remember seeing at LSU. Certainly tied to a great quarterback and just a tough matchup this week against Cleveland.
And finally, with Rico Dowdle and Tyjae Spears on the bench, Zamir White or Chuba Hubbard or other?
I think you're starting Zamir, but it's very reluctant. If it's PPR, you might want to go with Spears.
Okay. Where can everybody get more info? Because God knows between now and Sunday, there's going to be so much more developing, and they're going to need their daily dose of Dave Richard.
Dave, we are near 100,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Wow.
So if you go to youtube.com, search for Fantasy Football Today, and subscribe to Fantasy Football Today, here are the bonuses you get. Number one, you'll have access to ask us questions live on the air whenever we're streaming. You cannot do that unless you're a subscriber. When we hit 100,000 subscribers, we're going to answer 100 questions on a live stream. So that's another opportunity for people to get their questions answered. An unplanned live stream to celebrate 100,000 subscribers. And all our subscribers get a new car.
Wow. A new car.
Wait a minute. I'm being told by our legal department that part is not true. That no one will get a new car. Not even a used car. Not even a hubcap. So I'm going to take that one back. But the first two things I said, absolutely true. If you need help with your fantasy teams, go to youtube.com, search for Fantasy Football Today, and subscribe to our live stream. We're on every day. And
they're just 3,000 away. They're just 3,000 away. I'm looking at it right now. I see Jamie, Dave, Adam. Is Dave Dave's getting like me. Look at is that a little gray coming in on the chin?
Oh, I see.
Oh yeah,
wow.
dude. I'm almost 50.
Wow.
Almost 50.
I know. It's been we were young men, Dave, when we started this.
I remember when we were young.
All right. Well, we'll down some Metamucil. We'll get ready for fantasy football on Sunday. And as always, we appreciate you. Please do subscribe to Fantasy Football Today. Want to see them at 100,000 by next week because I think they get a cool, like a big plaque.
They get a new car.
Yeah, they get a new car, but that's awesome. Thank you, brother.
You got it. Always great to talk to you, Jason.
All right, take
Thank
care.
Yes.
We'll take a break when we come back. 3 for Madness, and then at 7:30 we've got